As most of you all know by now, I love storytelling. I love hearing funny stories and stories about people's adventures, and I love telling my own stories. Stories about family are always awesome, but as some of y'all know, I've always had a soft spot for a good, scary, macabre story. And right now, it's October, almost Halloween. So you know what that means. I'm going to be sharing some of my own favorite scary stories from now through Halloween. So be prepared. Tonight, I thought I'd go ahead and share a story that's also going to kind of help get something off my chest. Something we don't usually talk about in my family. Most of you know I have a older brother named Van who was adopted back in the 70s, and then an older sister named Tracy who was born not long after him. And then there was me, the three of us. But what people really don't know is that there used to be four. I had an older brother named Richard who was born ahead of us, born shortly before my brother was adopted. He's no longer with us, and we don't usually talk about it very much, and you're gonna find out why in just a second. But back in the mid-80s, I was still a little kid, and my older brother Richard, he had just turned 16, and he was given a new car for his birthday. Later that year in the wintertime, around Christmas, we decided to go up and visit my grandparents who lived up in the country. My granddaddy and my granny lived up on this huge, beautiful property out in kind of Nowheresville with acres of land, and the nearest neighbor was kind of far away, so it was sort of secluded and beautiful place. In the wintertime, we don't usually get a lot of snow in Alabama, but we did have some snow at this particular time when we went to visit them. Nice little cover of snow on the ground. It was so beautiful when we got there, and there was so much family there, so much so that the driveway leading up to their house was just packed. So when we got there, Richard had driven us. My brother Van and my sister Tracy and myself, we rode with him, and our parents went in a separate car ahead of us. Richard got there and he managed to get up the driveway, but he couldn't park there because it was so packed, so he had to pull around to the side of it and off into the grass there. Well, the snow was there, but we were able to get parked safely and went on in and had a great time with family. My granny cooked up a scrumptious meal. She always did both turkey and ham. We had just all this wonderful food, stuffed our guts, and then we sat around telling stories and having family time. Eventually it got late and people started leaving. My parents went ahead and left, so we stayed around a little bit with Granddaddy and Granny, and after a while we decided it was time for us to go too. Richard said, "Time to hit the trail, guys." So he went and started up his car to warm it up, and then he came and got us and walked us out to the car after we said goodbye to our grandparents. I and my brother Van got in the back seat, and my sister Tracy got in the front seat on the passenger side, and Richard, being the gentleman that he was, he held the door open for her. And then after he closed it and we were fastening our seat belts, Richard walked around to get in the driver's side. He went around the back of the vehicle. I was looking in the rearview mirror at the time because I was always so fascinated by that red light that the lights in the back would give off. And I saw Richard walk by in the back there in the reflection in the rearview mirror. So I got ready, we got set, my sister started fiddling with the radio, and we got into arguing about what station we wanted to listen to. And after a few minutes of arguing, we realized Richard hadn't gotten in the car yet. Well, my brother Van got the idea. He's probably back there hiding behind the car, wanting to scare us. Richard was a very good prankster. Van said, "Let me get out and go look for him, that darn idiot." So he got out of the car and told us to stay put. Me being precocious, I'm not going to stay put, so I hopped out behind him and ran around the back of the car where I'd seen Richard go. We saw the footprints in the snow coming off the driveway into the snow. There was a shadow being cast across one little spot of the ground there next to the car. I figure it was from the street lamp there near the driveway shining down, casting a shadow there. We saw Richard's footprints leading up to that shadow, He was wearing his favorite boots that day, so we could recognize the tracks. You could see the prints lead up to the shadow, one at a time, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, and then you could see the left foot imprint go into the shadow. But from there were no other footprints. It was like he just disappeared in mid-stride. We couldn't find any other tracks leading anywhere else, but my brother Vance started looking around, calling out for Richard, but got no answer. My sister Tracy got out. We scattered around a little bit, but we couldn't find any sign of Richard, and we started to get a little bit scared. We couldn't figure out where he could have gone and why he didn't leave any tracks in the snow past that shadow. My brother went in and got my granddaddy. He came out and my granny, and we searched and searched. After a while, we got very worried, and my granddaddy decided to call the police to see what they could do. We were afraid Richard might have been hurt. They sent 2 officers out who scoured the ground. Eventually, they got a search party going. There was even a forensics team called in to survey the area where he was last seen, but nobody could figure out how his footprints could lead up to that shadow on the ground and then just vanish in mid-stride. Where could he have gone? My parents were called back, of course, and they were scared out of their minds. We spent the night there with my grandparents in the extra bedrooms they had. The police searched for a while longer, but when they couldn't find any trace, they had to stop. Days went by, but we still never found any sign of Richard. He never came back. After a while, we started putting out flyers and posters everywhere with Richard's face on it, hoping somebody might come forward and tell us what could have happened, but no one ever called. We never saw Richard again. Years went by. My family stopped talking about it because it was just too painful. My parents, they never really got over it. And that's why I never told them what happened 5 years later. I just don't think they could have handled it. That winter, 5 years later, I walked out of my grandparents' house. We were visiting there, and I was walking around. I was in my teen years at that time. I was looking up at the night sky at the stars, trying to count them as I always did, and I found myself wandering over to the driveway near the edge where Richard was last seen. I noticed down on the ground there, we had a little more snow cover that year, but that spot where Richard was last seen, the snow just seemed to melt away there. Oh, it was still on the ground everywhere else, but in that one spot, the snow just wouldn't stick. It just melted away. And that's when I heard it. A lonely voice drifting on the breeze. Help me. Help me, please. Richard's voice. I could hear it coming from that spot. Help me, please. There was nothing I could do. I didn't know where he was. I called out to him, but he just kept wailing. Help me, please. During the springtime, I noticed that when the grass grew back around that area, that one spot where Richard disappeared always stayed bare. The grass just wouldn't grow there no matter what they did to it. It always stayed bare in sort of a circle shape. And in the wintertime, every winter, if I stood out there near that spot where no grass grew, no snow would stay, I would hear that voice. Help me. Help me, please. But there's just nothing that anyone could do. Where was he? We didn't know. Maybe in another dimension somewhere. Help me. Help me. Please. Ah! Well, as all of my relatives out there listening know, I'm completely BSing. I never had a brother named Richard. It was always just me and Van and Tracy. That story was totally fictitious, but it was good. I heard it first when I was a young boy, and I loved it. It was scary. It's sort of an urban legend. It never really happened to anybody. It's that famous vanishing brother tale. The story of the boy who vanished into the shadow on the ground, never to be seen again. It's a really spooky story, but it was a great starter story, because I know some of y'all out there are probably saying, that didn't scare me, but guess what? I'm just getting started. And from now through Halloween, I'm just going to keep telling stories that will scare you out of your mind until we get to Halloween. And on Halloween, on that week, I'm going to tell a story so terrifying, if it doesn't make your skin crawl, it's on too tight. So get ready. Nighty night.